Hi, this is Megan Denon, and this is my week 3 assignment video for COM 4513. Um, I chose to do my outline in this assignment over chapter 11 in James Farwell's Persuasion and Power, the Art of Strategic Communication, and that would be pages 143 through 147. This discusses campaigns of influence. And Farwell starts by presenting sort of definitions for strategic communications in politics. He talks about cementing a popular identity, rallying the populace to gain and consolidate support, scapegoating enemies who impose a failed policy or impede a successful one, and maintaining a position of power. So this helps us understand strategic communications in the realm of politics a little bit better. He also says that strategic communications in politics is the means through which one articulates a narrative that defines a credible rationale for a cause, candidacy, or action. And I think that that definition is particularly important as everything else relating to this sort of falls under that umbrella. It kind of falls back to that being the main goal. He moves from politics to military, which those things kind of go hand in hand. And so I kind of think of it as a sort of trickling down of definitions and a trickling down of understanding where each thing would fall below the other. Strategic communications in the military, he says, forge information strategies that it should achieve one of or all of three things. They attack and defeat an adversary's will. They influence adversary decision-making by persuading them that the price of victory exceeds any benefit. And they focus on target audience centers of gravity, and we will define centers of gravity later. Moving on from that tier, he talks about several core precepts that govern campaigns of influence. And I think these precepts are another way to sort of define and create guidelines for successful campaigns. So there are 12 of these precepts, and I will give those to you now. You should define your winning campaign objectives, identify and test the assumptions that make winning the objective plausible, forge a strategy that enables victory, create a concept of design through which strategy is translated into tactics and operations, use strategy and design to properly position a campaign by framing the issues and players, identify and mobilize credible messengers, identify credible channels of communication, anticipate responses to messages, provide effective rebuttals to adversarial responses, identify metrics to evaluate success or failure, and identify the information baseline from which to measure success or failure, excuse me. And I think it's really important that these things are addressed and explored and fully established in order to have a successful campaign of influence. And we see even different ways that just persuasion in general is being explored through these governing strategies. For example, when he's talking about credible messengers, credible channels of communication, that directly relates to when Aristotle talks about having a credible message in order to persuade people. He then goes on to further define and explain centers of gravity. So under centers of gravity, we're talking about who are people that are or identities that are centers of gravity in a particular area. He defines centers of gravity in 5 ways: the opponent's will and its decision making. Further, in a military situation, subverting, undercutting, and destroying the will of an enemy to fight or resist is fundamental. Another center of gravity is the will of the populace. Influence campaigns that affect whole populations should treat decision makers and influential people as key centers. This goes back to that definition that we were talking about earlier. Once you identify who those key centers are, then you tend to be able to understand the rhetoric that's going on and kind of the identity as a whole of the people that you're dealing with. Will of a government or party, that would be that the target audience may consist of a single government, an individual, or a small group. External decision makers and influential people who represent the population of existing and potential coalition partners, and the will of the domestic audience. I think that this chapter gives a really helpful overview and insight into how campaign of influence can be done successfully in the realm of politics and the military. And it gives us an idea of even what our own government is using as a basis for when we're involved in conflict abroad. It gave me a different understanding and different perspective of how there are these there's a structure to how that's being approached, not just from a militant level, but from a communication and strategic standpoint. And I thought that was really interesting. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I hope that it explained this chapter well, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks.